Guys, Kevin Hale here. It's this Sunday night, September 2nd, 2018. It is shooting from the lip 350, 350. It's our round of sports shots live streaming on our YouTube channel. It's our exclusive sport night where I get back to talking UK sports, U of L sports, because I am here in Louisville. And joining me tonight to talk all this good stuff and more is Jack Pilgrim. Jack is with Kentucky Sports Radio. Jack, what's up, brother?
I'm doing great. How are you doing
Oh,
tonight?
I'm good. Thanks for hanging out with us. Us being also Heather Tungate, who is a Shooting from the Lip contributor, and my podcast wifey, Heather. What's up?
Oh, not much at all. It's the most wonderful time of the year. I
Hmm.
love college football. I am glad it's back.
It is back, uh, back at it. Yesterday, for the most part, I mean, games started what? Actually, there were some games that were played last week. There was definitely a
Week
yeah,
zero is what they
weeks,
called it,
yeah,
which I find kind of weird. But let's be honest, this was the first week of
yeah.
college
But
football.
I'm curious. Was that first week, Jack? Was there any Power Five conference games played?
I
Schools that played?
I don't believe
Yeah,
so.
I didn't either.
What was that first game? Ah, man, I can't remember who it was.
Well, we
It,
won't.
it was a nobody, but I
Yeah,
watched it because I was itching for some college
yeah,
football.
yeah. Well, we won't hold that against you that you don't know, and I don't know. Heather, do you even know who played last week
Oh, no.
during
No,
week
I don't.
week zero? Or yeah.
I don't, honestly.
All right, but nonetheless, the week college football to us kicked off this past week, or yeah, this past week Thursday. There was several Thursday night games, and then yesterday Saturday on the first, um, majority of the games were played. Highlighted. Our Kentucky Wildcats got the season going against Central Michigan. We're going to talk the Kentucky game, Central Michigan. We're also going to talk Louisville against Alabama. We'll look at how the SEC did uh, during this opening week, which they did actually very well. Correct me if I'm wrong. Only Tennessee lost of all the SEC schools, I think.
I believe you're correct on that.
Yeah.
Right.
So we'll jump into that, and then we'll highlight some other national games that took place, and maybe some post game interviews where one esteemed coach kind of took it out on a ESPN reporter. But
Oh, yeah.
yeah, we'll talk about that. But let's start with Kentucky. Jack, not a great opening, you know, uh, game for them, but they did kind of pick things up. What was your impression of yesterday's game?
Well, obviously, it started out pretty ugly. Punt, turnovers. The offense just couldn't get going to save their lives. I thought they did some good things. Obviously, the running game was tremendous from start to finish, but there were just so many missed opportunities that could have gotten the offense going, but they just weren't able to just kind of get that offense clicking, and
Hmm.
and that ended up looking as ugly as you saw it. But it was a tale of two halves. First half was horrible, and the second half, I actually came away pretty impressed with both sides of the football. I know we're going to obviously dive into the quarterback situation, but I am not as disappointed and worried as a lot of people are. First game jitters. Both quarterbacks started their first college game ever. There's so much that goes into it. I think the sky is falling mentality is a little bit too quick, but we'll get into that when it's necessary. But
Yeah.
overall, a win's a win. Didn't get the cover. The spread was 17. We got 15, but overall, not too shabby.
Yeah, Heather, your take.
Honestly, quarterback play is going to be the big question mark, I think. And we're going to debate this ad nauseum, I believe, for the rest of the podcast. But you know what? Defensively, I thought our guys played well. Central Michigan, I mean, basically scored all of their 20 points off turnovers. So,
Yeah.
I thought our defense was great. I thought Cash Daniels and Josh Allen played great. I think combined they had over 20 tackles together. And, if we can clear up the quarterback question mark, I think this team's going to be fine. Our running game was well, and even Benny Snell, who was playing at maybe, I don't know, 50%, and he still had 125 yards and 2 touchdowns. The guy was in the hospital the night before. So, again, I think this team is going to be fine. We just got to figure out that quarterback scenario.
Yeah, first game, I think, Terry Wilson brings a lot to the table as far as his athleticism. And let's give props to Gunnar Hoke coming in and, and on that first series that he came in, Jack, didn't he lead us to a score?
Yeah. I believe he was 3 for 5 on that drive for about 45 yards. Hit David Bouvier wide open in the middle for a touchdown. Very, very close to a pick six that if that would have happened, how it probably should have against any real SEC team,
that's true.
That would have been a scary point because the Cats were already down 10. They're down 6 at that point, I believe.
Right.
They return it back to the house. We're talking about a 2-score game. Them getting the ball in the second half. Momentum not in Kentucky's favor. Terry Wilson still a little bit banged up. Gunnar Hoke's, confidence is down. That would have been a whole different story, but luckily it didn't happen. And he brushed it off and converted on a huge throw to David Bouvier, and all was well from there.
Now, Heather, you touched on the defense too. Elaborate more. What defensively stood out for you?
I thought that Cash Daniels and Josh Allen were basically everywhere on the field. Those two were solid playmakers from start to finish. And I think their attitude, their leadership on the field, the way they communicated with their fellow teammates on that side of the ball is very important, especially going into next week's game where you're going into the swamp against Florida. And we all know what happened last year, and we all know that Kentucky wants to break this streak and finally beat Florida. It's going to be a tough environment, but when you have leaders on that side of the ball, defense, where they arguably that's why they lost the game last year. I think when you have these two guys out there communicating with their teammates, you're going to see a different defense than you did last year against Florida.
Yeah, we'll jump into the Florida game soon. Jack, I'm going to pull up the KSR app, which I religiously look at, and check out a couple of articles. One of them you mentioned, or you talked about the quarterback. Is there a controversy at quarterback with this team right now?
I don't think so at all, actually. Like I said earlier, it's both of the quarterbacks. It was both of their first time ever stepping onto a Division I college football field. Terry Wilson mentioned after the game that he had some first game jitters and he just had to get that out of his system. Mm-hmm. Obviously the storyline of the game was Terry's three turnovers, his 1 fumble and 2 interceptions. But if you break it down, turnover by turnover, obviously his fumble was pretty bad almost immediately after he was touched. He almost played scared with that one, and he just muffed it. And for a guy as talented as he is with the ball in his hands, I just thought that was a little bit. I just thought it was inexcusable, and he's way too good to be doing that, especially with such a big SEC slate coming up. You just can't be doing it in situations like that. That was a bad one. But his first interception that he threw, I thought it was a great ball. Taven Richardson had a great route. He was going to be wide open in the end zone. It was right on the money. I don't know if he got tripped up or if he tripped up on his own feet or whatever, but he ended up laying down in the end zone. And the guy that was covering him ended up with the ball in his hands, and it made Terry look bad. But if the play had gone the way it should have, that would have been 6 points on the board. Terry's confidence is up, and who knows how the rest of the game would have played out. His second interception, it was kind of across the field. He shouldn't have gone across the shoulder the way he did, but he got hit as he was throwing it. It was, I don't think that was a very good throw, but other than that one, I mean, those two plays, other than that, I mean, I thought he actually had a pretty solid game. He brought something else to the table that, man, we just, you could tell he was just a couple moves from breaking one. I know there was one, he kind of broke through the line and made a couple people miss, and he got a shoestring tackle in the linebacker area, and man, if he's going to have one of those plays this year that he's just going to turn heads and make everybody go wild, and we're just waiting for that big Terry touchdown moment, and I just think fans got to give him a chance. Gunner, he's Mr. Efficient. He's a guy that he's going to step in there. He's not going to turn the lights off in the place. He's not going to be something super special. He's going to get the job done. But if you look at it in terms of, do you want to be a 6-6, 7-5 type team, then you go with Gunner. But if you want to be that special highlight making home run threat, if you want to take that next step in Kentucky football, you got to groom Terry Wilson and make him what he can be, because, I've talked to his former coaches. I've talked to, some of the current coaches on the team, and, what he does in practice. And if he can just knock that rust off and get his groove going, I think he has a chance to be something special. And you just got to ride with him. He's a high risk, high reward type guy. Mm-hmm. And, you got to live with some of the, head scratching mistakes, because he's going to fix those errors later on.
All right, that's really good points. Heather, finish up that topic.
Yeah, I agree with Jack. If you can ride or die with a guy that not only moves well with his feet, but also has a strong arm, arguably the best arm of these two quarterbacks. I think this Kentucky team offensively has a lot of power. Not only do they do it on the ground game, but they have the best core of wide receivers that the numbers didn't show at this game, obviously, because there was a lot that happened. Our quarterback play was not good this game. But if you can up the quarterback play for the next game, I think you're going to see guys like Taven Richardson, David Bouvier, their numbers are going to creep up. Lynn Bowden, it just, as long as you have consistent play at the quarterback position, which I think you will with Terry, mm-hmm. This offense has the potential to be dynamite, put up some big numbers when they want to, but it's just, we've got to have that consistency on the quarterback play.
Absolutely. I mean, and Jack, it doesn't really hurt us, to have Benny and the boys, in the backfield for our quarterbacks. And speaking of our running game yesterday, what was your assessment there?
Oh man, I when you have this adjustment period for both quarterbacks, whoever Stoops had gone with, just to have two guys that can produce every single night. Obviously, Benny was a storyline. You know what he is. You know that he was going to have a stellar season no matter what happened with the quarterbacks, no matter what happened with the receivers. With how solid the offensive line was and how incredible of a talent Benny is, you knew from the get-go what you're going to get with him, and he was going to put up, over 1,000 yards and, over a dozen touchdowns most likely, no matter what had happened. And to add in AJ Rose, who was a bit of a question mark last year, he always had the talent, but whenever he actually got game reps, he was just never able to convert. Right. He was a liability in pass block situations. He'd miss blocks and leave the quarterback wide open for a terrible sack, and that just kills momentum, and you can't have that. But for him to go out there and just kind of have it click and say, you know what, I know how talented I am. I know I could be something special. For him to finally have that aha moment, Obviously Benny, he's roommates with Benny, and Benny's been just kind of hyping him up for so long and saying, no, just wait for his moment. Just wait for him to find his aha moment.
Mm-hmm.
To kind of see that happen and come to fruition. It was something special. Saheem, I thought he had an all right game. I think he's one of those guys, what you're going to get out of him. He could give you, as a number 2 back, he could give you 300, 400, 500 yards on the season. The big storyline was you had to get AJ Rose going and be the true number 2 back. I think right. Saheem's a better fit as a number 3 kind of JoJo Kemp type guy when Boom and Benny were the stars of the show a couple years ago.
No, those are great points. Heather, jump in.
You know what? One thing, Kevin, earlier, I want to step back. We were talking about defense, so I'm going to flip the coin here. The one thing we haven't mentioned yet is Jonathan Ward, who everybody says is an NFL caliber running back for Central Michigan, who didn't know who Benny Snell was. Anybody want to guess what his final total was on the ground? Because it might have been something about 36 yards.
Yeah, it was rough.
Yeah. Yeah. When will people? Well, I don't know. I mean, in his defense, could he really not have known who Benny was, whatever? I don't know.
Probably not. I mean, you have to build up some type of hype. I didn't take as much offense to that as some of the other people did. I mean, when you are Central Michigan and you're going up against an SEC opponent, you have to have some type of chip on your shoulder and kind of come in there and try to make a statement. And unfortunately, he chose the wrong guy to make a statement about.
Right. No, definitely. Jack, I'm looking at your KSR post in regards to Benny's 52-yard run. There's a few of those pictures, those stills that he is clearly in a Heisman pose.
Oh yeah,
and that's badass. That is so.
Oh yeah,
I love it. All right. Let's look ahead. Next week, at the Swamp at Florida, 15-point underdogs. Heather, I'll start with you first. Of course, the streak will always be the lead story with this game. But tell based on who did Florida played Charleston Southern yesterday and put up 53 points. I don't know what's your take heading into the Swamp next week.
Well, you know what? Kentucky has to consistently continue with their ground attack because Florida gave up over 200 yards rushing
to the Swamp
to whoever Charleston Southern that they just played. If they're giving up that kind of yardage on the ground, I can only imagine what Benny Snell and AJ Rose are going to do to them. The other thing too is that their quarterback, and oh my God, I cannot remember his name off the top of my head.
It's not.
Thank you, Franks. He did not play well last year against Kentucky at all.
Horrible.
And that's when they brought in Del Rio.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they Del Rio this year. So, you know what? It's still going to be a hostile environment. You're still on the road in the SEC. I would love to say I think Kentucky has a fighting chance, but it's so hard to. After what happened last year in Kroger Field, it's hard to say Kentucky has a chance. But
last year we lost that game. Florida didn't win that game. So
no, it's I think there's a punter's chance they could go into the Swamp and pull this one off. I think if they did, it would open a lot of eyes, and I think it would garner Kentucky more respect in the SEC, even nationally, than what they have currently. But they still got to do it, Kevin. And it's going to be tough, but they still got to do it. And I think they have a punter's chance to do that.
Your take, Jack?
It's kind of funny seeing. I watched the about first 3.5 quarters of the Florida game, and it's so weird because I'm so used to Florida being so horrible on offense. The past couple years of the Jim McElwain era there. They were so horrible on offense, and to see Dan Mullen just kind of unlock something that I didn't even know they had they're playing Charleston Southern, so you don't know if that's their true offense or if that was just how bad Charleston Southern was. But regardless, they put up over 50 points, and Felipe Franks, who looked horrible last year, threw for 5 touchdowns. He looked stellar, made some unbelievable throws. It's just very odd, and to see a Florida defensive line they're usually just stellar on the defensive front. To see them give up over 200 yards to Charleston Southern running backs, it's just such a flip flop of what the Florida we have come to know over the past couple of years. But Kentucky has nothing to lose going into this game. They know the streak is there. They can't hide from it. One of my good friends, Freddie Maggard, used to tell me you just got to take the stickers off of the helmets and just see them for who they are as a team and what they are. Last year, I thought that they were one of the worst teams in college football, or not in college football, in the SEC. Yeah. And the fact that we lost to them was just heartbreaking, absolutely just disgusting. We should not have lost that game. We were easily the best team. They lost a lot more than we did this past year. This past offseason. They don't scare me necessarily as a team, but is the team willing to see that team without the stickers on their helmets? Do they see them as the big nasty Florida Gators in the swamp, or do they see them as an equal? And I'm hoping that Mark Stoops is teaching them to say, look, this is a game you can win. You have the talent to do it. Terry, I assume Terry's going to get the start. I hope he does. You just got to have to look at him and say, dude, I know it's pretty tough to go from playing in the middle of nowhere, Kansas, and then have your first away game be at the swamp. I know it's pretty rough for him, but you just have to just tell them to not play scared and go in there. I don't think that they're going to win this game, but I think they have a shot.
Ooh, so it's based on your all's comments, I'm kind of gathering it's a loss for our boys in Gainesville.
I'm predicting a loss, but I think that they are going to fight, and it's going to be, a lot of people are just assuming it's going to be a 45-7 butt whooping like we saw 2 years ago, and I just don't see that happening. I think it's going to come down to a one-score game in the final couple drives.
Okay. Heather, confirming. Do we lose next weekend?
I would love for us to win, but I don't know that this team is ready yet to go into that type of environment and win a big game. There's question marks around our kicking game, which could be pivotal down there in the swamp. And there's question marks about our quarterback play. I mean, frankly, look what happened against Central Michigan. How well will that translate? Here's the difference. If Kentucky can keep their ground game the way that it is, and we're going to have 100% Benny Snell, and our quarterback play is better, we do have a chance to win this game. And I think the spread is way too high. If everyone's healthy and our quarterback play is consistent, I think the spread in the swamp right now is entirely too high, and it's going to be a lot closer than what people think in Vegas.
Okay. Before we move on, I got to give a quick shout out, guys, to our punter. Was it Duffy?
That was awesome.
I mean,
yeah.
he averaged 50 yards. Four punts, 200 yards, 50 long of 54. But yeah, I mean that's huge to be able to, when your offense is not clicking, that you're going to put the other team's offense, in a not so great situation, at least there. So let's give him some props.
I hated the punter nickname for so many years because that's not a good thing.
I know.
The fact that your punter is incredible, and that's the start. That is the focal point of the team, and that's the overall takeaway from a game. That's not a good thing.
No.
But in this situation, when 2 years ago Grant McKinnis was averaging 39.4 yards per punt as a freshman, and he had to go, and Stoops had to go out and find Matt Panton, and he had some highs. I mean, I think he had a 61-yard punt, or no, that was Grant McKinnock's, but Panton had a couple bombs, but he was a bit inconsistent. To have a guy that just comes in there and every single time you can rely on him to get 45, 50, 55 range, anywhere in there is just icing on the cake. If the offense can get rolling and you don't need him that much, that'd be fantastic. But at least while you get your offense kind of just clicking and trying to get them them firing on all cylinders, to have a guy that can pin them deep in their own territory and have a defense that can convert on that good field position. Right. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, this is one time when who was it? I want to say the old ball coach, Spurrier, went after one of our butt kickings that he gave us.
I remember that.
Where he did give our punter a lot of credit.
What they say, they have one hell of a punter. I know that.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Let's go to the Louisville, Alabama game. Alabama looked good.
Very good.
Very good. As I chatted with my Louisville buddies on social media, some of them were like, "Thank you, Petrino, for throwing all the verbiage out there about that he feels like they could beat them." And I kind of responded back with, "No, I mean, I think, Jack, for Alabama, you're going to get Alabama's A game with the season opener.
Yep.
You're going to get their A game on marquee SEC games, and you're of course going to get their A game during the college football playoffs, which seems to be every year, anyways." Yep. Louisville would have had to catch Alabama after some marquee game for them to really have tried to compete with them. But nonetheless, again, your assessment yesterday on Bama's big win over Louisville.
Yeah, I thought they looked very, very impressive. Obviously, I hate those situations similar to the Central Michigan running back. I mean, you go into that situation. I mean, what do Louisville fans hope Petrino says in that situation? I mean,
right.
You don't want to say we're gonna go in there and fight and we're gonna hope to not lose by 50. I mean, in his mind, Petrino understands the reality of the situation and knows, hey, I just lost my Heisman winning quarterback. I know we lost a lot on defense. I know our offensive line is still a major problem. We have flaws. We're trying to bust in a new quarterback, and you don't really like to, work in a new quarterback against arguably the best, program of all time, under the best coach of all time. You just don't know what to expect, and as from Alabama's side of things, how Nick Saban was so upset over a 50-point trouncing, and how upset he was over the quarterback situation and all that. It's just funny. I mean, he's very Bill Belichickian. It's just nothing is good enough until they win a championship, and then the day after they win a championship, it's on the next season. I mean, that's just a story, the story of Nick Saban, and you just gotta appreciate it and be thankful that you're living in an era where you get to watch Nick Saban work his magic.
Magic it is, because I mean, Heather, Alabama, they are the benchmark for the last several years of college football. They'll always be, while Saban is there specifically, in the mix for a national championship. But heading into yesterday's game, the number one team, season opener, they did it last year against Florida State. Heather, the game against Louisville, as a college football fan, as a SEC football fan, this game was 2 years too late, because I would have loved to see how Alabama played or defended Lamar Jackson.
Oh, I completely agree. I think having a a good Lamar Jackson. And 2 years ago, Louisville's defense was very, very good.
Yeah.
It would have been interesting to see those two teams rather play 2 years ago. But again, look, Bobby Petrino does his thing. I know Louisville has to have something to root for at this point because let's face it, there's been a lot of stuff that's happened at that university in the last, 12 months. But at the end of the day, don't ever poke the bear. Guys, seriously, I understand wanting to build confidence. I understand wanting to get your team up for a big game. But when you blatantly disrespect the number one team in the nation, what the hell do you think they're going to do to you? They're going to run you off your own field, which is exactly what Alabama did last night.
Going back, Jack, one thing Alabama is not known for is a Heisman-type Heisman quarterback. But they got a stud throwing the ball right now. I mean,
man.
To give Alabama a dynamic of that capacity, to have a quarterback who can throw the ball all over the field. This takes it. I mean, Alabama has been badass for several years, but this takes them to another level.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, I don't even remember the last time Alabama has had a stud NFL prospect quarterback.
Right.
I mean, obviously, A.J. McCarron is, he's been bouncing around, second and third string teams now for a couple years. And there's Greg McElroy. And I mean, you go down the list and there's nobody that really stands out. Jalen Hurts, he was a stud athlete. He could make throws when it counts. And he led the team to, 2 national championships. Right. You have to give him props for that. But you also have to give Nick Saban props to have the balls to, make that type of play, coaching personnel change whenever the situation called for it in the championship game. I mean, who in the right mind at halftime says, you know what, we're going to throw a new quarterback out there and see what happens? And
who has it?
Nobody. Nobody does that but him.
It's just unbelievable. And have him not only thrive, become, he was the playoff MVP, had the game-winning touchdown throw, and then to have him step in game one of the following year and just torch Louisville. Louisville, I mean, their defensive backs are solid, but man, he just torched them. That was a sight to see, and if there was any controversy about whether Jalen would get any reps going forward, I believe that has been closed.
Well, based on the play on the field, you would think, but unfortunately, ESPN's Maria Taylor caught a little bit of the brunt of a. I thought the question, Heather, she asked it was definitely a fair question. It was the right question to ask.
Yeah.
Heather, I don't think in this case, I think Saban was a little. He was out of line, in my opinion.
Out of line. Yeah. He actually was a dick. Yeah. And which is very Nick Saban. Jack made the comparison earlier. It was a very Bill Belichick answer as well. I get that he is tired of answering this question, but it's still a valid question. And by the way, speaking of Alabama, what team, and this is a question to you guys because I can't think of one off the top of my head, what team has had kind of this quasi, quarterback controversy entering into a potential national championship year where you could play 2 quarterbacks? Has there been one that I can think of? Yeah. I don't think
not that I remember.
Yeah.
And Jack, I think because of Saban's loyalty and respect for Jalen Hurts, he's gonna play every game. Tua may start and play more than half the game, but Jalen's gonna play. I think, and that's I think that is. I don't know if it's. I use the word loyalty. Probably is because Jalen Hurts has been very good to the program for 2 years, And
Yeah, I mean they have two
yeah.
national championship appearances with his name next to it.
Mhm.
I mean, his flaws, he has them, but for him to, I mean, he was the face of the team for 2 seasons, and you have to give him, that type of respect back. One thing that I know, going back to Kentucky, we're talking about Alabama, but one thing that I really respected out of Mark Stoops' opening press conference last week when he named Terry Wilson the starter, he said, people said, well, are you going to play both quarterbacks? What happened? Is Terry just the starter this week? He said, guys, my track record with quarterbacks here at Kentucky. I'm very loyal to my starting quarterbacks. I'm not going to have a short leash. I don't want my starter to be always looking over his shoulder. And I think that was a very, big point for not only the Kentucky program, for, every program, including Alabama. I mean, to have 2 guys, you have to be loyal to Jalen Hurts because he has been such a threat. And I think he knows that Tua is probably, not probably, he's definitely the better option.
Mhm.
But for what he has done with the program, you don't want to, hurt Jalen's feelings and run him off and have him lead another team to a national championship. You just can't have that. You got to have both of them ready, as we see every week. Injuries happen, especially at the starting quarterback position. You got to have a guy that's ready to come in there and compete. And luckily, they have one of the best quarterbacks in the nation that's going to be backing up arguably the best quarterback in the nation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I'll challenge you a little bit with Jalen Hurts. I'm a Jalen Hurts fan. I think he's incredible. He's an incredible athlete, and he has, as a college football quarterback, he is, to me, he's the epitome of a college football quarterback. He's big time. But I'll challenge you because on this, I don't think Jalen Hurts, unless he went to, say, maybe like Clemson or a really top 4 school out
Right.
Oklahoma. I don't think he's not a quarterback that he's had success at Alabama. A lot of it is because of what surrounds him. I mean, he's a general. I mean, he's leading his team and he's good at that. But he's, because of his lack of some of his his passing, not so impressive passing game. He's bailed out by great running backs and a lot of great players around him too.
So what you're saying is he's the Ben Roethlisberger of college football.
Well, I mean, he's
a
a winner.
Point.
He is a winner.
As a Patriots fan, I agree.
Yeah, but Jalen Hurts wins. I just don't think he's capable of doing that. He's not a national championship caliber. That's going to take a, I don't know, if he went to Auburn or else,
he's a game manager. He's just good enough.
Very good.
Right.
He's very good. Yeah.
Do you guys believe that if he were to explore his transfer options, you got to think he'd be the most sought after transfer target of all time?
Yeah.
I mean, of all time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, that's actually you could label him a hired gun.
Oh yeah. I mean,
because
I bet there would be a lot of illegal stuff going on for, if you're going to risk it all for a guy. It might be a guy that's led 2 teams to national championships.
Remind me, the transfer rule now, is it if they transfer, do they still have to sit out a year? Has that gone into play?
I don't believe that has gone into play yet, but I think it's in the works.
Yeah.
I don't know the latest updated thing. I know there's the new waiver, the waiver thing that if you have a cause for immediate, an immediate transfer, an immediate play, I believe you can, like an Ole Miss situation where there are major sanctions. They basically say, if you can leave if you want. Right. I know there are some, if your head coach leaves, you can have, I don't know. It goes back and forth with it, but I know it's in the works.
Mm-hmm. All right. Good take there. Let's quickly recap SEC football. Of the 14 teams, 13 played yesterday. 12-1 was the record. The only blemish, if you will, was Tennessee's loss against.
And my was it a blemish?
Yeah.
Yes.
West Virginia. Yeah, it was. But that wasn't in Knoxville, was it?
No,
No.
it was at West Virginia.
Well, actually, I'm looking now. It was in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was. I don't know what kind of why it was a neutral. Well, evidently it was a neutral, quote unquote neutral site. But nonetheless, West Virginia did lay the hammer down. The rest of the teams yesterday looked pretty damn good. And let me throw this at you guys. It's halftime. LSU 27, Miami, Florida 3.
Putting a hurting on the ACC.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are.
The number 8 team, which, let's be honest, rankings at this point of the year,
They're dumb.
$1 in rankings will get me a Coke. But nonetheless, though, I mean, Jack, SEC appears to will go, barring some disaster, 13-1, and some impressive wins, especially
Very impressive.
Yeah.
And
So,
it's a shame because this is easily Mark Stoops' best
yeah.
Kentucky team since he's been here, and if Kentucky had this team last year,
Mm-hmm.
I think we'd be talking 9-3, possibly 10-2. I mean,
With that
their
schedule,
was,
right?
Their
Yeah.
schedule was so light last
Mhm.
year. They had the opportunity to do something very, very special, and unfortunately, our schedule is a whole lot tougher this year. To where maybe this team is a lot better, but a 7-5 year this year is not the equivalent of a 7-5 team last year.
Right.
But the scene as a whole is just
Yeah.
is just remarkable. I mean, for the SEC, the past couple of years they've been trying to throw in the Big 12, Big 10, say the SEC's on a downhill. Get out of here. The SEC is always has been and always will be the cream of the crop.
Yeah, they are the measuring stick. Heather, your take SEC display over the weekend?
Yeah, honestly, I think it proves that the SEC is not on the decline. I think top to bottom, even the worst team is better than a lot of mid-tier or mid-tier teams in some of the other Power 5 conferences. And I know this is going to cause a lot of controversy, especially with my Ohio State husband who is currently getting ready for work. But you know what? I think the SEC, it just top to bottom, all these teams, they recruit well. They hit the top 5 states that produce all this top NFL talent. I mean, and even Kentucky. I mean, who would have thought that Kentucky would be able to recruit? I live in Ohio now, and they're recruiting so well up here. It's just, I think it says a lot. It's a testament to what people want to do. I think some of these kids coming out of high school, they want to be competitive. They want to get to that next level. They want to make their dream come true of playing in the NFL. And I think that's why you see all this talent flocking to the SEC, because they know they're going to get to that next level being coached by top-notch guys, top-notch crews, and they're going to always play against consistently the best talent in the country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Good takes there regarding the SEC performance over the weekend. Jack, I'm going to shut this down soon, but one of the hot topics heading into the college football season is the mess in Columbus with Urban Meyer and Zach Smith and that whole you had the suspension where Meyer didn't mention Courtney Smith during that presser, and then a few days later, either made a statement, but there's still that is I'm not. Well, let me just. What has been your take?
I mean, the entire situation as a whole is embarrassing. Obviously, Urban Meyer has had a lot of these very questionable situations as in his entire coaching career at Florida. I mean, just look at the history of the arrest records of his players and him keeping players on that absolutely shouldn't have been on the team, and some of the coaching situation. I mean, he has a very long history of that. And, when you have a situation like this where it is as serious as it is, and him taking it so lightly and kind of brushing it off with the media. I mean, he released an iPhone's notes, the note app on an iPhone. He released his official statement immediately afterward on that. It's like, dude, you don't. It's like he doesn't even realize the magnitude of this situation. I think he thinks he is larger than what he is, and he always has. And it obviously took him several days before he finally apologized to the person that deserved to be apologized to the most. And it just the entire situation is embarrassing. And obviously Zach Smith, just as the details come out, and you start seeing what he ordered on Amazon, and all the lewd, just the weird stuff that he's been doing, and what he covered up, and how he just continues to, he went off the rails a couple of days ago on Twitter.
Oh yeah.
Trying to defend himself and saying, all these people that are coming after me, you're going to get yours. The karma's going to come back around and get you. It's like, dude, you need to go move to Hawaii
and shut it down.
throw your phone in the ocean and disappear. Just go away for a while. Restart your career with something else, because obviously football is not your thing. If after year after year after year you continue to hide things, just go off, be on your own island, and from an Urban Meyer perspective, that's just disappointing. I thought it was worthy of him being fired, but when you are a coach of his caliber and his just name recognition, he's this larger than life type guy. That these type of situations happen, and it's disappointing.
Yeah. Heather, you touched on your husband's Ohio State fan, but since the all this has happened, Zach Smith has been on the offensive, going after the school, Ohio State. Spineless was a word that he used in regards to the way the school handled the situation, but based on all of the information that has come out regarding Zach Smith, again, ultimately, Urban Meyer enabled him by in a sense, protecting him, and that should in itself have warranted more than a 3-game slap on the wrist. And it's a slap on the wrist, Heather, because he's coaching practices. And they won big yesterday, but he's still got his hand in everything except basically on-field game day for 3 games. So
right.
Yeah.
It's Kevin, I used to make the comparison that when Urban Meyer was hired at Ohio State, it was the equivalent of John Calipari being hired at Kentucky. It was a perfect marriage. Where the comparison stops is that I think John Calipari, despite what everybody else thinks in the college basketball world, is actually a decent human being. I'm not sure anymore that Urban Meyer is. I mean, you're talking about a guy, like you said, he enabled behavior that was destructive, that was abhorrent, that, and he has a history, by the way, guys. All the enemies and the naysayers of John Calipari, the difference between him and a guy like Urban Meyer is that Urban Meyer consistently never did the right thing, ever. Right. And he's generally a guy that, he wants to win at all costs. And while people might think with the one and done system that Calipari was the same way, or is the same way, he's not. He's so much better. And it just aggravates me that people, look, I'm married to an Ohio State fan, and I don't understand how a fan base, I don't care how much you love your coach. At the end of the day, how do you stick by a guy that while he was at Florida and even now at Ohio State, I mean, You guys had your starting quarterback was suspended how many games? 5 games for a free tattoo. And your coach was fired for a free tattoo and lying about it. You have a guy that lied about domestic violence and he gets a 3-game suspension.
Yeah.
Terrell Pryor somewhere is like, are you blanking kidding me? Like, how does this happen? It's just, I don't know how you can stick by a guy that just doesn't give a shit about anything but winning. And I get that's their job, but there has to be a line. He clearly crossed it, and he clearly doesn't care about anybody else but himself.
Yeah. And finish it up, Jack. Any last?
Yeah, I just think he realizes he's immune at this point, and he just doesn't have a care in the world. He's like, you know what? I know I can do whatever to whomever, and I'm gonna come out clean in the end. So, you know, why bother? And it's a terrible mentality to have, but unfortunately, here we are.
Yes or no to both of you on this, and then I got one last topic before we'll shut it down. Should the NCAA get involved here, Jack, with this Ohio State situation?
Oh man, that's tricky. You know, just what exactly, you know, would they do at this point? You know, I go back to the Louisville basketball scandal and when the NCAA got involved, you know, specifically with the FBI aspect, you know, I just wonder what they can do at this point. You know, I would like for it to happen. I would like to see Urban get more than a slap on the wrist and him finally get, I don't want to say finally get what he deserves, like some comic book villain, but you know, I think there should be a punishment for, you know, what he did. And if the NCAA has to get involved to make that happen, you know, maybe they should.
Yeah. Heather, you know, short of murder, to me, domestic violence is ugly. And if everything is true with what played out or happened to Courtney Smith and the school, the AD, the coach knew about it, covered it up, I just, if all that is, if those are the facts, I just can't help to think that you got these, you know, support groups, these national domestic violence, you know, support groups out there that would petition the the NCAA to get involved. And I mean, it's ugly. And, yeah.
It is ugly. It's almost very Jerry Sandusky-esque. It's almost
that was literally
very
my next point. Yeah.
It's almost very Larry Nasser, you know, esque as far as Michigan State. It's You know what it shows to me, and this is the part that really disturbs me about college athletics as a whole.
Good old boys. It's the good old boys.
It absolutely is the good old boy network. Yeah. It's the almighty dollar. Yeah. It's the we're going to protect our institution at all costs. And at the end of the day, all these collegiate athletes, whether it's gymnastics, football, basketball, whatever, you know what? They're all just pawns. And and that's why I think at this point, the NCAA really needs to start looking at Division I, you know, these programs and just they've got, like, when you have something as abhorrent as what happened at Penn State, Michigan State, and now Ohio State, which, by the way, what conference are they all in? Out of curiosity.
No, right. That's another mess.
There's a problem. There is a problem, and it has to be addressed. As much as you want to make $1 off your athlete, you also have to protect them. And I feel like the Big Ten as a whole has failed to do that with any of their athletes.
That's a great point. I mean, the Big Ten is there's a black eye there. All right, last topic I'm gonna throw at you guys, and then we will shut it down for the night. In California, guys, a high school football team voted to cancel the season after being outscored 102-0 in its first two games. 102-0. First game was 41-0. Second game 61-0. And the team had only fielded 18 players. Um, right or wrong? I mean, is it? Yeah, I get it. I mean, because if you statistics alone would say that they may not score a point, in 10 games, and give up close to 1,000 points or something, or not 1,000, but I guess more. But yeah, 500. But do you quitters? That's kind of where I'm getting at. Do you quit, or do you try to fight through it? Jack, real quick, what would you? I mean, if you're in that situation.
Playing football growing up, I had an 0-12 season. So there was an A team and a B team, and basically the head coach of the B team was allowed to pick. After both teams were chosen, the coach of the B team was allowed to pick 3 or 4 players from the A team to kind of keep them treading above water. And I was somehow one of those individuals, and I suffered through a winless season, and it was heartbreaking. And at the time, I wanted to quit because it was just horrible. I thought it was a waste of time and all that. But the year afterward, it made every single win, more appreciative, and I felt like there was a life lesson to be learned there, and I thought it got me better in the long run. So my perspective is, no matter how horrible your team is, no matter how horrible your team is, just go out there and learn something from every game. Even if you're not going to win games, even if you're not going to put points on the board, learn from, you get better by playing better competition.
Yeah.
Go out there and learn something from that better team. Learn better coaching tactics. Do whatever. There is something to be learned from a blowout loss. And for them to quit the season, it's just like, what are you teaching the kids out of that?
Right. Now, Heather, let me before I get your quick take. I did mention the team fielded 18 players, but technically only 12 have played. 12 played, so they were obviously playing both sides, of the line during the game. And the vote was 11 players on an anonymous vote voted 7-4 to end the season. So, Heather, your quick take.
First of all, what city was this in? Where's the school district?
It's in the Hale, Healds, Healdsburg, California. It's in Northern California. So.
Northern California. Yeah. You know what? I agree with Jack. What lesson are you teaching the kids? You have to fight through adversity. You have to play as a team. That is the very definition of playing a team sport. When you're wanting to put up the white flag, so to speak, and say we can't compete anymore, you know what? It doesn't teach them anything. I mean, I think a majority of the parents, me included, because I have 3 kids, we get our kids involved in sports because not only do we want them to make friends, but we want them to be a part of something it's a team building thing. It's, displaying your athleticism, whether you have it or you don't, you want them to be a part of something. You want them to be essentially, and this is going to sound corny, a part of a family. When you give up on your family and you give up on trying to learn anything.
But in this case, it sounds like the whole family gave up.
I know it does sound like the whole family gave up. But you know what, though? It sucks. It sucks for those kids because Jack's right. What lesson does that teach them other than if you can't succeed, it's okay to quit?
Yeah. Well, let me throw this little caveat here. And how much do you think, like, in this age of social media, does that play into something like this? And here's where I'm going with. These kids it's probably safe to say every one of those kids have, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, everything. They're on social media everywhere. And all they're seeing after every Friday night is how their team got blasted and all this negativity. And it's like, for some people, they're, you know, a bad, a mean tweet will hurt their feelings.
Yeah. I mean, we see that with, I mean, if these kids have dreams going forward, playing sports, obviously, if they're losing
Right.
by 50 points, they may not. But
Mm-hmm.
If these guys have dreams of futures in college athletics and or beyond, you better get used to it, because
Right.
social media is not slowing down anytime soon.
That's true.
And
everybody's a keyboard warrior.
as the
Yeah.
oh yes they are, as the teams get bigger and more prominent, as far as collegiately and obviously professionally, the fan bases get bigger, and there are more mouths that are not very positive, and they're going to hurt your feelings much worse than any high school blowout loss will. So
Mm-hmm.
they better get used to it.
I do. There was one more thing I want to bring up, and this is more for. This is definitely, well, it's for both of you, because you've got ties to this gentleman that I'm going to be bringing up, Mr. Matt Jones, who is going to be involved with NFL Game Day. In that, I don't. I'm not remembering the exact thing, but it's what, ESPN Radio,
it's
right?
a Sunday radio.
Yeah.
It's an ESPN radio show on the official ESPN NFL network with I can't remember his co-hosts right now,
Yeah.
but pretty prominent
Right.
figures.
And
Yeah,
he's actually
about something out of left field.
right, and he's actually going
Cool.
to Bristol every
Yeah.
Sunday morning for this, or
Which-
yeah.
He can have fun with that, because that sounds like a nightmare to go back and forth between Bristol,
Yeah.
Connecticut, and
So-
Kentucky.
So yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, whether you love or hate Matt, he's very entertaining. He's smart, and he knows what he's talking about.
He does.
And I think he is going to add value to any coverage that the NFL would want, or ESPN would want, from an NFL analyst, because he will say off the wall shit. But at the end of the day, I think people are going to respect it, and they're going to be like, you know what, I like that guy. He's funny, and he's. But again, honestly, Matt will, anything he touches, pretty much he turns to gold. So I think he'll be, honestly, and Jack, it is what it is. I mean, like, he's getting ready to open this restaurant. Like, he will do fine. And honestly, he's gonna prep, he's gonna take it seriously, and he'll do fine. And I hadn't heard this before right now. So you know what, Matt? Congratulations to you, because I think you'll do well.
It's a 3-hour morning show from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Sunday mornings. It's called Countdown to Kickoff. He is going to be with Myron Metcalf and former quarterback Dan Orlovsky. So, anyways, yeah. Congrats.
Yeah, he's been looking for something to expand. He's always looking for something to expand.
One more thing.
Always. He's
As if
always looking for ways to, just
the brand.
Increase popularity, increase his name. He's wanted to go outside of the Kentucky realm for a while, because I think he knows sports outside of just Kentucky, and this is a good opportunity for him. And I don't know if I would be willing to take that long trek every weekend, but better props to him. And I wish him luck in those endeavors.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Jack, hold on. Is he really going to run for Senate, though, on top of all of this?
I
want to know.
I genuinely believe he will.
And I think he should.
Yeah.
I think he realizes that. So I kind of go back and forth with my stance on it. A lot of my family members that, now that I'm working for him, they want to know the inside scoop and go, oh, do you know how is he going to run? Is he going to run? When's he going to run? And I believe he wants to. I think he sees an opportunity. Everybody knows which way he leans politically, but I believe that just because he has his name out there, he has his face out there, he has just unlimited branding, anything he wants to do to brand himself or, campaign, he has the platform to do it.
Right.
And I think he sees that as an advantage, and I think ultimately he will end up running. But again, that is no insider information. That's just kind of reading tea leaves based on what I've heard in the past. I don't know for certain. I know he said on the air that he goes back and forth with it, but you know what? If that's what he wants to do, like I said, he is always looking for a new way to expand the brand and get his name out there and get the KSR name out there. And
absolutely,
what better way to do it than to run for the state?
All right, guys. Jack, before we let you go or we shut it down, share with everyone social media. How can people connect with you?
So my Twitter handle is Jack Pilgrim KSR. Obviously I post on KSR 4 times a week, usually for very long shifts. 4 articles in a row. On Sundays I have the website all day long, so I'll post anywhere from 6 to 10 articles throughout the day. So you go on KSR, and I'm pretty certain you'll see my stuff out there. So I appreciate the clicks, and I appreciate the feedback, whether it be constructive criticism or good praise. I welcome both.
And much appreciation to you, Jack, for hanging out with us tonight. Good stuff. I had a good time. And we'll definitely do it again. It was fun conversation.
Of course. Yep.
All right, for Jack Pilgrim, Kentucky Sports Radio, my Sunday night wifey, Heather Tungate. We wish everyone a great Sunday night and a good week. Peace out, people. Good night.